Good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us here at the wonderful Barony of Angler's Rift Arts and Sciences Night for Introduction to Amtgard, Amtgard 101. I'm hoping that this will be useful for anyone joining us that is legitimately brand new to Amtgard in the recent days, or perhaps even folks who've been around a while who might not know some of the ins and outs of how Amtgard was formed and how it is structured and all that good stuff. So we are specifically in this class going to be doing an overview of Amtgard the organization. We're going to talk a little bit about how gameplay and classes and everything factor into it, but really we're going to be talking about how Amtgard as an organization is structured, how it's governed, and some of the what I call the six gamification systems or the six progression systems that are in the organization. Um, for those of you who haven't met me personally, my name is Brother Tobias of Heraldsbridge, presently the Regent of Angler's Rift as of the date of this recording, and then about a week and a half from now, the next Baron of Angler's Rift, unless something goes horribly awry with the voting, in which case Aetheris will edit this out because it will be horribly embarrassing to me. But been participating in Amtgard off and on for about 25 years now, and in that time, Amtgard has had a lot of changes. But so I'm going to be talking to you about kind of what it looks like here in the middle of 2026, and it's going to be hopefully a good class. So we're going to be talking about seven subject areas today. We're going to be talking about how Amtgard plays. So we'll talk a little bit about what Amtgard as the game side of the world works and some of the different activities and events that we have going on. Then we're going to talk about how Amtgard runs and operates, and then we'll deep dive into things like the officers, classes, the ways you progress. We'll talk a little bit about the mentorship structure of the game, and then we'll end with conduct and community expectations. Now, we're not going to be spending time specifically on the rules of the game and all of those kind of things. Obviously, we want you to learn those if you haven't already, but we're focusing more on the meta of Amtgard today than the specific gameplay itself. So just kind of big picture, what is Amtgard? Amtgard is as an organization is about 43 years old. No, I'm doing the math wrong. Yeah, no, 43. That's the math. Founded in El Paso, Texas, the Burning Lands, our very first kingdom, and growing from there. There are presently 23 kingdoms, everywhere from Alaska to Florida, from Canada to not really Mexico, but the borders certainly. And it is a volunteer-run organization. So we are a foam combat sport. I think full contact probably not the best term to use there, and I might edit that in future versions of this draft. But we are a medieval fantasy live-action role-playing game. So we're a LARP, and it is a volunteer-run organization. So we're going to talk about what those volunteer individuals are. Um, there's really kind of in the gameplay aspect or kind of the community aspect of the game, there's really kind of two sides to it. There's the fighting and the not fighting. So the fighting, your battle games, your tournaments, your quests, all those kind of things. You're not fighting garb, crafting, heraldry, service, operations, all those kind of things. And we're going to talk kind of about both of those. Most Amtgard parks meet usually weekly, some of them at least every other week. And that might be simply to do a fighter practice, or it might be for a battle game day, or it might be for what we just generically call a park day. We're going to talk a little bit more about that as we go. Let's talk a little bit about the play side of Amtgard and what kind of happens in these in the events. There's basically two kind of things that Amtgard parks and Amtgard kingdoms do. They do their park days. So these are every week, every other week. These are in-person gatherings where you are getting together at your local park or your local college campus or wherever that might be. And I kind of call it like a nerdy book club that happens to swing swords at each other. It's usually a very social opportunity. There might be combat, there might not. There might be arts and sciences, some crafting. Folks might be bringing whatever they're knitting or whatever they're tooling in leather or whatever else. and working on those. It's really just an opportunity to hang out together with your newly made nerdy friends, and if you're into the combat side of the world, get some practice in. There are specific types of park days. Sometimes you'll do arts and sciences. For example, we do ours online. So every Wednesday night, Angler's Rift is doing our weekly arts and sciences night, which we're doing right now. And so that usually involves the teaching of a class, or there'll be a panel discussion. There might be a workshop where we're making things together, or it might just be show and tell, open office hours in a sense for the artisans and crafters to talk to each other about what they're working on. You are not required to wear medieval fantasy clothing at park days. A lot of folks will, just because it's a fun opportunity to throw that stuff on. And if you're going to be nerdy in public anyways, why not just go all out? But it's never really required. And the vast majority of Amtgard parks usually have equipment available for new players to try out the game. If you've never actually played before, maybe you're joining us online because you saw a post on Reddit or Facebook or wherever, and so this video or our class is the first time you're really interacting with Amtgard and you haven't gone out yet. Oh, but I don't have a sword and I don't have garb, I don't have a shield, and I don't know what spell. We have loaner gear. Most every park will have swords that you can borrow and try out the game mechanics with, and maybe other equipment like archery supplies or spell balls or things of that nature that you can give the game a try with. Or even if the park itself doesn't have it, Amtgarders want more Amtgarders, and so we'll gladly hand you a spare sword that we have, at least to borrow for the day, so that you can learn the rules and enjoy fighting with us. The other thing that happens are events. So events are usually full weekends or day. They can be single day events, but a lot of times they're full weekend gatherings where the entire kingdom or multiple parks are invited to join together to do an Amtgard event. These will usually involve a schedule of activities. There might be battle games, which are scenario driven games with or without the classes involved. There may be tournaments, there might be arts and sciences competitions. There's often food involved because we like to eat. So feast might be a component of that. And quite often there will be a court, which is where the chapter president and vice president, aka the monarch and the regent, will get together to award people for their service, their craftsmanship, their combat prowess. We'll talk more about those awards later in this class. There are some standard events that every kingdom and every park tends to have. Here in Crystal Groves, we specifically have a coronation and a mid-reign event every year, or twice a year every year. Coronation is where the new officers of the monarch, the regent, and the champion take office, and there's a voting process. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then mid-reign is halfway between the monarch's reign in the middle, where their Guildmaster of Reeves and their Prime Minister take office, and I'll give you an introduction to all these officers in just a moment. And so those are usually bigger events. Here in this kingdom, we do a lot of our events at campsites or private event sites where folks will camp out. They'll bring tents and pavilions and all their gear, and it might be a Thursday, Friday, Saturday situation. It's a really big kind of activity. Those generally are the ones where if you've got some medieval garb, you're going to want to throw that on, or character costuming. If you don't have any, that's fine. We are always happy to share. But that is usually one of those times that somebody will throw on that tunic, even if it's just the $20 thing you got off of Amazon. That's fine. Nobody cares. We want you to come and have fun. When it is time to fight, there's a bunch of different types of combat activities that tend to happen. One of the most common ones are sparring or ditching. These are just kind of simple fighting. You're generally no classes, no special abilities, no armor, and you're really just practicing. You're fighting, one on one or group on group, and it's an opportunity to learn. You may hear the term ditch used specifically to refer to kind of a specific combat practice practice, which is two teams line up, they fight until the last person's alive, and then the last person that die, you have some training teams, and so you're constantly shifting teams to rebalance the group and get different combinations of fighters involved. Then you'll see battle games. So these are generally scenario based. These could be you're trying to annihilate the other team, you're doing capture the flag or something very similar to that. If you've ever played MMORPGs, you might have like an escort quest where you're trying to get the captain from one side of the field to the other, or you're trying to get the gold treasure chest from one side of the field to the other without being getting killed. These very often are played using the full Amtgard character class setup, using magic, using multiple weapon types, archery, and if the area allows it. And so you'll have people who the Reeves will give you rules, and then you'll be playing to accomplish the rules of that game. Your tournaments and duels, tournaments specifically, are a very common practice at events. So if you've ever heard of like a March Madness tournament or a tennis tournament or anything like that, same thing except it's with fighting. And so that would be, very often single or double elimination combat, or you might have round robins depending on the number of players that are available, or a very specific one that is very common in Amtgard is called Iron Man, or it may also be termed Bear Pit, may also be termed King of the Hill, where you're trying to stay in as long as possible with multiple combatants coming to fight you. So it's a very common tournament style. And then there's also quests. Sometimes battle games will have a quest element to them. You're trying to solve a puzzle. You have a specific objective. There's maybe a monster. There's riddles. There's puzzles. Things of that nature. Or they might be standalone. They might not necessarily even be combat activities. Particularly at larger events, you'll see quest scenarios play out on the role playing side of the world in Amtgard as well. On the off the field side of the world, you've got your kind of arts and sciences and workshops. So arts and sciences, that encompasses everything creative, creative and construction, from making costuming and garb, creating armor, building weapons, doing leatherworking, embroidery, chainmail weaving, also to more traditional arts, painting and sculpture, and heraldry, illumination, and calligraphy, all those kind of things, to performance, bardic performance, and even brewing, cooking. There are dozens of things that fall under the arts and sciences, and very often they're taught in classes or they'll be done in workshops. There are competitions to compete with each other in that field as well, just the same as the battlers, the fighters do. And in the organizational structure of the game, your park or kingdom regent are the folks who are in charge of that side of the world. The feast very often is a big component of Amtgard events, and it is an opportunity for everyone to get together and share a meal. Very often that is cooked by Amtgarders who are setting up the event. Maybe it's something that they brought with them, or it's something they're cooking literally on site. It could be a potluck. It could be a planned meal. Sometimes you just order pizza because you just want to hang out. And more often than not, a feast could be after park. We're all just going to go to the local pizza place or the taco stand or whatever else, just to continue hanging out with each other. So it's a wonderful thing to do there. And then court is a ceremonial event, generally led by the monarch of the park or kingdom, though the regent also has the ability to bestow awards. And then more recently, I believe our champion does too in our corporate change, where the court is, if you think of that medieval court, that Renaissance court where people come before the throne and are given awards and recognitions and titles. That's what court is. And we're going to talk about the different types of awards and recognitions that come in through the game. And this is really where those 6 gamification structures really take off inside of Amtgard. So now you've seen kind of how Amtgard plays. Let's talk a little bit about how Amtgard runs. So Amtgard as an organization is a I kind of like it to a confederate organization in the sense that it's not a federal system of one single head honcho group that is the king of all Amtgard, and then there's kings in the kingdoms, and then there's kings of the parks, and all that kind of stuff. But more, it's all of the kingdoms kind of share a framework and work together as distinct individual organizations. On the business side of being an organization, holding a trademark and organizing the rules and all those kind of things, we have Amtgard International. So Amtgard International is the corporate structure that owns the IP of the game, so to speak. And then has the rules, and they set contracts with the kingdoms and all those kind of things. And again, these are all volunteers. The executive director of Amtgard, as far as I know, I think is a complete volunteer. And they have what's called the executive committee, or XCOM, which is that kind of help organize a lot of the structures. That organize the meetings and all of those kind of things. Um, Amtgard International then has its kingdoms. These are the geographic regions that that are organized with a king, with a or queen or emperor in some cases, and then their regents and their other officers and so forth. And then the kingdoms are comprised of parks. These are your local chapters, your local groups, where you are playing. So we are in the Kingdom of Crystal Groves, and our park is the Barony of Angler's Rift. I'll talk about those structures in just a moment. And then parks are made of people; they're made of you, and so we want to recognize that. There's kind of another structure-ish thing that are called units or companies and households. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but that's more of an informal gathering together of people who are working together in the game. The kind of the ruling body that covers the rules of the game and some of the more structural things that are not the trademark and IP and all of that is an organization called the Circle of Monarchs. The Circle of Monarchs is the crown monarch of every single kingdom that together form the ruling body that adjudicates changes to the rules or changes to our award structures, or things of that nature. They big sweeping things that impact the whole game are all dealt with at the level of the Circle of Monarchs, or you may hear that called the COM or the IKCOM Interkingdom Circle of Monarchs. Um, and so that is the highest authority in the game, but it is really just an alliance of all those 23 heads of state, who may also then be represented by their senators, which we'll talk about as well. The kingdoms, those are your large geographic regions. So there is an elected officer at the top of every kingdom, elected officer set, which we'll work through. Um, and let's make sure we're muted if you aren't making me. And so you have your elected leadership. They're really there to coordinate the activities of the kingdom as a whole. So they're going to be the ones that the kingdom is hosting a kingdom coronation and a kingdom mid reign, and big awards are the ones that are held handed out by the kingdom. We'll talk about that award structure here in just a moment. So our kingdom, Kingdom of Crystal Groves, we will be 20 years old next year. We're entering our 20th year next year, which is super duper exciting. We were formed in 2007, and we're basically the Mid-Atlantic states, the Chesapeake Bay kind of area, plus parts of Pennsylvania and West Virginia. So this neck of the woods between Golden Vale, which is north of us, Winter's Edge, which is south of us, and Rising Winds, which is west of us, form the form our kingdom, and we have over a dozen classes here, or parks here in the DMV, that are filled with wonderful people. If you haven't got a chance to travel around Crystal Groves, I certainly recommend it. A lot of parks are less than an hour and a half from each other, so go visit your fellow parks. Park is the local group, so this is where people are getting together to play Amtgard on a weekly basis. There is a structure to the park system that is based on the size of the park. And so every park starts out as what's called a freehold. A freehold is unaffiliated with the kingdom. They're just getting started, becoming an Amtgard park, and as they grow, they might seek to join a kingdom by signing a contract with that kingdom. When they do that, they become a shire, and a shire is the starter level for groups inside of a kingdom. And then as they get larger and they've got some time under their belt, they may be promoted to barony, and then they'll get promoted to duchy, and then hopefully they'll get promoted to grand duchy or principality, which may be a group of parks playing together. And those levels determine things like what level of award you can give out, what titles you can give out, and then some ceremonial things like what do you call the president of your chapter. If you are a shire, the president of your chapter is called the sheriff. If you're a barony, they're the baron or baroness. If you're a duchy, they're the duke or duchess. If you're prince, it's prince or a principality, prince or princess. Um, but yeah, that is the parks kind of layout there. And then I mentioned earlier the companies and households concept. These are informal, but sometimes very important gatherings of people. We have two types of those in Amtgard. We have fighting companies and we have households. As a general rule, fighting companies, you are only ever going to belong to one at a time because they are designed to be a group of people you fight with. And so if you had two different companies you were a member of and they were both in the same tournament, you might have a conflict there. Then households are usually built around the social aspects of the game. They might be dedicated to specific activities. So a lot of people will form a household around a craft. It might be a crafting styled as like a crafting guild, or they might form it around their association line, a knight and their squires, and so on and so forth. And we'll talk a little bit more about the associations here in just a little bit as well. Households, you can belong to as many of those as you like, generally speaking, unless your household has any kind of reason why you don't do that. But yeah, they're more arts and sciences service, things of that nature. Talk about officers, and I will stop for questions. Toward the end, if anybody does have any questions, feel free to post those in the chat. But let's talk about the officer of the game. So if you've been playing in Amtgard for any amount of time, you will have heard of all six of these officer titles. They might be some variation, as I mentioned. Sheriff versus Baron versus Duchess, and so forth. But these are generally speaking elected officials. So we'll hold elections twice a year, four times a year actually, to elect your monarch, regent, champion, prime minister, guildmaster of reeves, and then there's also the senator, which has a special role in the organization. Um, and what they do is pretty straightforward. Your monarch is essentially your chapter president. So the monarch is the one that organizes the group, leads the group, helps coordinate activities with outside organizations. If you're doing demos or if you're working, you're going to go march in a parade or whatever else, the monarch is your chapter president. So they're going to be in charge of leading that. They're also the ceremonial head of the group. So they're going to be the one doing award, holding courts and doing awards along with their regent. Your regent is your arts and sciences officer. They're also your vice president of the chapter. So if for any reason the president has to step down, the monarch has to step down, the regent will take that job as a pro tem situation in most cases. There's always exceptions, and somebody might say, I don't want it, and you're going to hold a snap election and things. But for the most part, the regent is that what we call a drop dead deputy. They're going to be taking over that job. And they are in charge of arts and sciences for the group. So they're going to be organizing cultural tournaments. They're going to be organizing workshops, classes, arts and sciences nights, things of that nature. Doesn't necessarily mean they're teaching all those things or they're doing, classes or hosting the panels. They're just organizing those things. So if you're ever a person who said, I kind of think I could maybe get into serving in office, but I don't know about being like the chapter president and going that far. If you have an interest in the arts and sciences, maybe you're not a teacher, but you know some, or you're willing to organize. Regent is a great entry level opportunity for folks to serve. The prime minister is the kind of chapter secretary and treasurer. You can think of them in that way. They are the ones who are in charge of all of the record keeping for the organization. So taking attendance, handling our waivers, uh, documents that you sign when you sign up for Amtgard. Entering there's quarterly reports that they have to do to the kingdom for insurance purposes, all those kind of things. So the prime minister is basically the secretary and the treasurer. They also handle organizing dues, taking that, managing bank balance, all those kind of things. You have two officers that are in charge of kind of the combat activities. The champion is in charge of fighting opportunities, battle games traditionally. Some kingdoms, the champion is handling both tournaments and battle games. Some kingdoms, the GMR is the one that handles tournaments. But they are responsible for combat activities, overseeing those, and equipment safety, generally speaking. So they'll be checking weapons, checking armor, all those kind of things. And then they're almost always also the lost and found for the group. So whenever there's a need to have a lost and found, you'll see that there. You also have your guild master of reeves. So we haven't talked about reeves yet, but reeves are essentially the referees for the group. They're the safety officers that run battle games and tournaments, and that organize those kind of things. And anybody can sign up to become a reeve. You just have to take a test that says that you know the rules of the game well enough. And then you too can be a reeve. And then the head of the reeves is the guildmaster of reeves, and that person is in charge of enforcing the rules and making sure that all the other officers, the battle games and stuff are enforced accordingly. Um, as I mentioned, in some kingdoms, this kingdom particularly, the Guildmaster of Reeves is the organizing officer for tournaments. So battle games, quest scenarios, all that goes to the champion. Crystal Groves, the GMR, handles tournaments. And then the senator is a special position. The Circle of Monarchs, the work that is required at the kingdom level on the Circle of Monarchs is, can be a little cumbersome. While you're doing other things as the king or queen or emperor, doing your courts and traveling around the kingdom and handling disputes and all those kind of things, you also have to deal with the interkingdom side of the world. And so almost every kingdom elects a senator who is basically our representative to the Circle of Monarchs. They work with the king and queen and the other officers. They poll the citizens and populace to get there, to gauge, hey, they're about this new initiative is going to come up for a vote. What does our kingdom think about it? And then they represent the kingdom on behalf at the Circle of Monarchs in their quarterly meetings, and very often in the in-person gathering. There's once a year there's a game called Gathering of the Kingdoms, where the Circle of Monarchs meets, or the senators, whether the monarchs are there and present, or both, if they happen to both be going to the game. Like I said, Reeves, very important role. They're not an official officer because anybody can become a Reeve. You don't have to be voted in. But they are the ones who are enforcing the rules on field. So they're monitoring tournaments. They might be running the brackets. They might be organizing the battle games, taking points and monitoring counts and all those kind of things. But they're also settling disputes. The Reeves are expected to be impartial judges of what's happening on the field. And so if they are noticing that someone is not appropriately calling shots, or not appropriately handling certain magic effects or things of that nature, it is the Reeves' job to say, hey, I'm pretty sure, in fact, I'm positive you got hit in the arm just now. You need to take that arm. Or I don't know if you felt it, but I saw that flail hit you in the back. You're dead. And they are the ones who are responsible for that. Because in the heat of battle, if you've got a whole bunch of people on the field, doing a battle game, you might miss stuff. And so the Reeves are there to help with that. The Reeves word is final. It is. If you're new to the game, or if you're not new to the game, I will tell you what I tell everyone. During the game is not the time to argue with a Reeve. If the Reeve says you're dead, you put your sword above your head and you walk off the field. Because you can deal with that later. And maybe the Reeve got it wrong. They're human. I'm a Reeve. We're human. But during the middle of the game, the goal is to keep the game moving smoothly and to make sure everyone's playing fairly. So please do not have on-field disputes with your Reeves. Take those off field. Now, if you're in the middle of a tournament, let's say it's a double elimination tournament, and you're not sure what happened with a shot, or maybe the Reeve called something, there might be an opportunity there to stop for a moment and have that conversation. But make sure that you're doing that in a positive attitude and with the understanding that everybody's just playing together here. We're all just having fun, and everybody's doing their best. Okay, so this is an area to be very well behaved. But as I said, anybody can learn to reeve. Everybody should learn to reeve. I think every and I agree with my good mentor friend Red in the chat. Um, Everyone should be Reeve qualified. If you know the rules well enough to play, you should know the rules well enough to help others. And to watch for that things are going well on the field. So I think everybody should try to become a Reeve if you possibly can. You never know when that might be helpful. All right, let's talk briefly about the classes of the game because they have an impact on some of the progression mechanisms. Again, I'm not going to get deep into classes, class abilities, all that kind of stuff. But just a kind of very, very high level overview, we have kind of two different pathways for classes. We have our magic users who are casting spells and throwing spell balls and all of those kind of things. Those are our bards, druids, healers, and wizards. They have a variety of different play styles ranging from I'm going to stand all the way over here and I'm going to point at you and get stuff done through I'm going to buff myself up and now I'm a werewolf and I'm going to get my swords out and go at you on the field. They are a little bit more of a complex thing to play in some regards because you do have to design your list of abilities by spending spell points. It's a fun thing to play. Then you have your martial classes, your archers and your barbarians and your warriors and your scouts, and these are folks that are going to lean more into equipment, weapons, armor, archery. They will have some special abilities that they can use. Usually a more narrow, limited set and more thematic. So archers' abilities are all going to have to do with the types of arrows that they're shooting, whereas barbarians' abilities are going to have more to do with being able to tank on the field and keep fighting no matter what. So those are those. You will also hear some references to other classes, quote unquote, or when people sign in, they might say, "Oh, I'm signing in as color." Those are monster. So, in the context of quests and battle games, you will very often see people playing monsters. They might be playing goblins or dragons or skeletons or any number of mythical or fantasy creatures. And those are going to have special abilities that are tied to what level of monster you are. Um, so that's kind of special. Monsters generally are not a thing that you play every single week, unless you're Hodge. But they are something that you would, be talking with your game runners, your Reeves, about. What are the goals for this game? Is there room for a monster? Do you need a monster? Can I be a monster? You'll have those conversations with the folks who are running the game. Your peasant, in the rules of play, if you didn't bring any garb, you don't have any of your stuff on you, you can sign in as a peasant, and so you're just fighting with a short sword and you don't really have any abilities. um, I think colloquially, culturally, we don't really tend to see people actually play as peasant. Though there are absolutely people out there who play a lot as peasant, and we'll talk about the Paragon system in a little bit. And there are Paragon peasants out there. Color is what we call our non-combat role. And so that's people who are maybe they're not doing anything related to combat. They are crafters, they're artisans, they're teaching classes, they're at the park just to make sure people stay hydrated. They're cooking food, they're the potluck specialists. Maybe they're just hanging out. That's all they're doing is just kind of chilling. We love color. I myself am a color person. That's all I do. The last time I battle gamed was 15 years ago. And so we love our color people because they add extra flair and extra personality to the game. And they're just fun to hang out with, in my opinion. And then you have your Reeves. Now, those classes are really there to define the abilities that you have. If you want to play Assassin as if you want to theme up your character, let me take a step back. Amtgard, unlike some other LARPs, some other role playing games, are not super 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 role play intensive. It's not like one of those games where when you step on site until you leave, you are a character and you are inhabiting that character. Our personas more dictate things like our combat style or our dress or some of the cultural things that we do. Like my persona is, I call myself an ecclesiastically nebulous flyer, or a nebulously friar, or a nebulously ecclesiastical friar. I'm Brother Tobias. I have a monk-ish persona, though I'm not a monk. I don't play a monk. But that's kind of my persona and my garb. Partly because that garb is real easy. You throw in a robe and a hood, and you're done. um some people get much deeper into their characters. You are a fairy that is escaped from the lands of the Fae, or you are a barbarian Viking down from the fjords. Some people get very, very into it. But the class that you play and the persona that you have don't have to be related. So if you think I could be a really killer wizard, but I want to play an alchemist style person, or a plague doctor, or whatever else, do it. You don't have to be a healer. If you want to play a plague doctor, you can totally do that anyways. Or if you want to be a Viking, but you want to be a bard, be a Viking bard. Totally do it. Okay? Let's talk about the gamification systems of Amtgard. There are six distinct systems, and then some other things that kind of float around it, but six primary systems that we use to recognize our players for what they do and the gameplay that they've done inside the game. Those six systems are your class levels, which we'll talk about in a moment, and then those culminate very often in class paragons. Our ladder awards, which reach ladder masterhoods, and those can also get to knighthoods, and then our titles of nobility, which are generally for service in office. So let's talk about those systems. Class levels, that is, you showed up, you played the class, you earned your credits. We've asked folks to check in tonight. Different kingdoms have different rules about whether or not you have to actually, whether or not you can get a credit in a class for attending an arts and sciences night, for example. Crystal Groves, we do let you do that. So, despite the fact that you are not here playing Wizard, you can sign in as Wizard if you would like to, and that will get you credit. As you earn credits in the class, it levels up the abilities and the skills that you have from first to sixth. So it takes about a year to hit sixth level if you are signing in once a week, but you can get, I believe, up to 12, or it's either 12 or 16 credits a month, depending on the what version of the rules we're in right now and all that kind of stuff, and bonus credits and things of that nature. So you can do that. Now, your credits are not attached to you as a person. They're attached to you as a person with your classes. So 53 sign-ins get applied to a class. When you get level 6 in Wizard, you're not level 6 in everything. You would then go start leveling up Wizard, and then Warrior, and then Color, and then, whatever other things that you might want to do. Some of us just keep signing in as something that we've already hit level 6 in, because, like, I'm just going to do Color or Monster, because I don't know that I'll ever play Monster, but maybe I will at some point in a quest capacity. Non-combat, I'm the troll that hands your riddles out. That's about all you're going to get out of me. But I'll just keep putting credits in those. There's no real value to me to level up Warrior. But I am a level 6 healer and a level 6 wizard, so there you go. Um, Once you have reached level 6 in your class, that gives you the opportunity to be considered for a special award called Class Paragons. Class Paragons are a polling order, and what that means are the other people who have previously been recognized as as top of their field in playing or role playing that class are asked, are consulting the monarch on who else do we recognize as being that level of awesome that we want to then recognize them for it officially. And so you could become a Paragon Wizard, or a Paragon Druid, or a Paragon Warrior, a Paragon Anti Paladin. And when you do that, that means the other people who have that have recognized you're very, very great at playing that class, but you're also someone who teaches others. You're someone who leads. You're someone who, when we think about what a wizard is, we think about you. When we think about what a monster is, we think about you, in a positive sense, in the game of Amtgard. And so they will hold votes internally to identify people who they believe should be who receive that award. They recommend those to the crown. The crown then gives out those awards, usually at larger events. You can be given a paragon in every single class, including monster, including color, including peasant. Right now, in the whole of Amtgard, there are about 114 Paragon colors. We've got 4 of those as of the time of this recording. And there are about 41 Paragon peasants. It's the most rare thing out there. So, yes, you can be a Paragon peasant. And a Paragon monster, and the other things as well. Reeve is kind of special. It's a different award. We'll talk about that. But you may hear references to Paragon Reeves. We'll talk about that momentarily. There are, let's talk about our ladder awards. So you're going to hear references to this. The ladder awards are a set of awards that are given out in consecutive rungs. And so these awards recognize different services or arts or combat activities that are going on in the game. And it's our way, as officers, of thanking you for doing this service, or sharing your talent, or recognizing your combat prowess out there. And so the 9 primary ladder awards are the service awards, which include the Order of the Rose, which is given for general service. So the common the common example here is you might get your first Order of the Rose for helping pick up trash after field. You might get your 10th Order of the Rose for being the event leader for a multi-kingdom event. Things, and then things kind of escalate up the ladder that way. There's also the Order of the Smith, which is for service in running games, quests, events, teaching, workshops, all those kind of things. And the Order of the Lion for leadership specifically. You may be asking yourself, well, wait a minute, if I'm running an event, is that a smith? But I'm leading a team of people who are running it, is that a lion? But I'm serving and I'm like cleaning up trash while I'm there, is that a rose? The answer is yes. The answer to all of those is yes. What is given you is usually based on kind of acceleration. So if you've already gotten 4 roses and then you help lead workshops at an event, we might probably just go ahead and give you the 5th rose because we want to get you higher on that particular ladder. But certainly recommend people for whatever you think is appropriate there. And then the last one of those specifically that is a little more specific is crown. And the crown is for leadership in elected office. So you have served in an elected office and you'll receive the Order of the Crown for doing that. You might also receive other awards too, but you'll get the crown for having served in that. We have our arts and sciences trio, which is the owl, the dragon, and the garber. The owl is for our construction sciences, so that's making weapons, making armor, shields, all of those kind of things. The dragon is for the arts side of the world. So, calligraphy and illumination, cooking, bardic, poetry, knitting, embroidery, or some forms of that. And then you have the garber, which is for your costuming and accessories. So making cloaks and tunics and things of that nature. There is a little smooshiness in, owl versus garber for things you might wear out in battle. Is that belt that you tooled that is holding up your sword frog more of a garber thing or an owl thing? Is the embroidery that you did on the pouch more of an arts thing or a garber thing? So there's a little smooshiness around there, but again, it's just kind of based on what track you're on and how we want to help get you up the ladder. So some things are going to be very obvious and everything. We have 2 awards that are specific to fighting. We have the warrior and the battle. Warrior is specifically leaning toward combat in tournaments. So one-on-one or sometimes group, but generally one-on-one tournament combat, whether those are single elimination, doubles, round robins, Ironman, Swiss, whatever you have. And there are actually in the rules of play kind of specific guidelines for how you move up there based on the level of tournament that you play in or place in, and the combat level and things of that nature. Versus the Order of Battle, which is one of our newest orders, which is based on the class battle game side of the world. So warrior for the not class, non-ability side, battle for the spells and abilities and armor and archery side of the world. Okay, so that's kind of the distinction between the 2 of those. As you go up the ladder from 1st to 10th, once you hit 10th, you become eligible for a special award called the Master or the Masterhood Award. So once you get to your 10th rose, you will very frequently, you may be given your Master Rose. Once you get to your 10th owl, your Master Owl. We've actually got a couple of funky names for two of those. Your 10th warrior is not Master Warrior, it's Warlord. And your 10th battle is not Master Battle, it's Battle Master. And those are just culturally significant and specific to those. Now, the cultural convention of each kingdom differs in whether or not you get your 10th and you just kind of get the masterhood with it, or you get your 10th and then masterhood kind of forms the 11th step on the rung. But masterhood is a recognition that you have reached the pinnacle, the top of that particular field. If you are a master garber, we are recognizing that you just make incredible garb. You do. If you're a master crown, we are recognizing you have given so much time in service in the officer core of the game at all levels. And so it is truly a recognition that you have reached the top of that particular ladder. Okay. Um, some, as I mentioned, some kingdoms just go ahead and give it to you with your 10th, some don't. Crystal Groves leans more toward 10 equals master. Not always, but we kind of lean that way. At least that's my perception and my time here. We'll talk about the knighthood eligibility in just a moment as well. There are also other kingdom awards, some of which work in that latter format. These are not in what's called the award standardization. The interkingdom circle of monarchs, in order to make sure that some of the highest levels of the game have relative consistency, designated those 9 orders as standardized across all kingdoms. But most kingdoms also have these other ones that they can award. We have the Griffin. So the master, or the Griffin, is courage and chivalry and honor on the battlefield, or in competition. We're actually talking about here in Crystal Groves extending that award to arts and sciences. When you perform well and you perform with honor, even in a difficult competition, if you lose with grace, that might be a situation where we want to recognize that behavior with the Order of the Griffin. Is it spelled Griffon? Is it spelled Grff? In? Is it spelled with a Y? The it You ask 23 kingdoms, you're gonna get 5 or 6 different spellings. But in the actual document, I believe here in this kingdom we spell it with an O. I could be wrong on that, but I don't think I am, because this is based off the core. And then for us, if you get to the masterhood of the Griffin level, we will give you a special title called Cavalier. The mask is our persona and roleplay development award. So as you start to develop your persona, if people start thinking of you, like if you're doing a plague doctor persona and people know, oh, the dude in the plague doctor outfit walking around over there, that is so and so the alchemist, and they're killer, and they really get into that thematic. You'll be given the Order of the Mask for developing that persona or the roleplay. I will tell you, as part of my own philosophy of awards as I've been in office, I also give out masks for people who do things to contribute to the atmosphere of the game. People who do thematic classes, or make materials that enhance the gaminess of the game. Okay, if that makes sense at all. If you get to the master level in Crystal Groves, you get a special title called the Thespium. The Jovius. The Master Jovius is the exuberant, and Jovius is that exuberance. You have an outstanding attitude. You're pleasant to be around. You're fun to be around. We want to recognize that. I think everybody would agree. Organizations, social organizations in particular, are just more fun when people are enjoying themselves and having fun and getting along. And we want to recognize and reward people who make it a point to be positive and have a positive attitude. And so we do that through the Order of the Jovius. The Jovius is my personal favorite award in all of Amtgard, because I think nothing is more important than a positive attitude in making sure everybody feels welcome, and enjoys their time in the game. The hunter or the marksman, depending on the kingdom, is the latter award given out for archery. And very frequently, this is tied to archery tournaments or archery competitions. And you can become a master hunter or a master marksman. Different kingdoms call it different things, but it's the same thing in both cases. Um, the I'm going to skip Walker for a second. The Zodiac. The Zodiac is a very interesting one. This is kind of an older one. It's been around for a very long time. Some kingdoms give out a lot of them, some don't really. But this is outstanding contributions in a given month. So you would receive the Zodiac for December, the Zodiac for June. And it means in that month, we recognize that you did something killer, and for that month, you are the MVP, and we want to recognize that. Zodiac is kind of a catch-all. It doesn't necessarily have to be service, doesn't necessarily have to be arts, doesn't have to be battle. It just means this month we want to recognize you. Employee of the month, Amtgard of the month. That's the Zodiac. Um, then there's the Walker of the Middle. And the Walker of the Middle is a special award that is generally, you can almost think of it as a lifetime achievement award in reaving. So you are an excellent reeve. You have been recognized as someone with great judgment, who acts fairly and brings justice to the field. The Walker of the Middle is something you can only ever earn once in your career in Amtgard. At least it's supposed to be that way. The data doesn't prove that out, but it's written such that you're only supposed to ever receive it once. And generally speaking, most kingdoms only give it out maybe once or twice a reign, because it is prestigious. So if you're a reeve and you receive the Walker, that says a lot about your character, and it says a lot about your judgment on the field. One that I don't have on here, that I'll also mention, is the Order of the Flame. That one is given as a group recognition. So it's recognition as your company or your household or maybe your park, or your event team did some cool stuff and should be recognized accordingly. Um, so for those latter awards, the latter awards culminate in that masterhood. But we have another concept in Amtgard called the knighthoods. So you may, hear references to knights, or you hear Sir so and so or Dame such and such. And those are people who have been recognized as being a combination of two things. Number one, they've reached that pinnacle in their field. So, in the case of the Order of the Flame, that is service. They are a master rose, a master smith, or a master lion. So we know that skill wise and service wise, they're at the top. But a knight is more than that. A knight is also someone who exemplifies ideals of the game, chivalry and mentorship and attitude and honor and some of those indistinguishable, those intangible qualities. But we know that they're a person you can look up to. They're someone who represents the best of us. That's the expectation of knighthood. And so we have five different orders that recognize those people who have reached the top of their skill game, but also are simply exemplary in character, or just people we want to be around. And that is the Order of the Flame, which recognizes service, and you become eligible for that once you've received your Master Owl. I'm sorry, your Master Smith, Lion, or Rose. The Order of the Crown, which is for service in elected office. So if you've been a kingdom monarch or a kingdom prime minister, several times, and you get those Order of the Crowns, you get that all the way to a Master Crown, then you can become recognized with the becoming a Knight of the Crown. Knight of the Serpent, which is for arts and sciences. So this is your Master Dragons, Garbers, and dragons, garbers, and owls. And those are, the folks that are just excellent at doing the arts and sciences, but also have that character aspect. You have your Knight of the Sword. Knight of the Sword is for martial excellence in that single combat realm. So, tournament combat and just being an excellent swordsman, a swordswoman, a swordsperson, plus having that exemplary character. And then Knight of Battle, which is for the class side of the world, the battle game excellence. So you've reached your battle master. You've got your warlord for the sword or your battle master for battle, and then you are recognized with, you're recognized with the Order of Battle there again. The knighthood is also a polling order. Here in Crystal Groves, we do those votes in public. So you are considered and you are weighed and measured in public, as of this recording, and once the people who already have that title, across all five, the flames will vote on the crown will vote on serpent. Once you've received that title, you then are asked to weigh in on other people who you believe may or may not qualify to join you in that circle of knighthood. And then that, they hold a vote, and then once that vote passes or doesn't pass, in our kingdom we basically consider the knighthood vote binding on the crown, and so those folks become knights elect, and then go on to have their knighting ceremony. Some kingdoms, it is not a binding, it's not immediately binding. The crown is takes the vote and then considers whether or not to knight someone, based on the results of the vote. I will say, the rules are, at least in Crystal Groves and in many other kingdoms, the crown can give out whatever award they want, whenever they want, for whatever reason they want. I mentioned some of these are polling orders. That doesn't always happen. Crystal Groves is pretty consistent about polling on them, but just be aware, if for some reason the crown determines that someone is deserving of an award, it is the prerogative of the crown being the monarch, who's in office there, to give out those awards. Okay. So those are the knighthoods. So those are the ones that end up at the end of the ladders. Our sixth, and final system here is titles. Specifically, the titles of nobility are going to be things like Lord, Lady, Baron, Baronet, Count, Duke, Duchess, Grand Duke, Archduke, and so forth. These are specifically earned for service in office. So you have served as a Shire monarch or a barony, prime minister. The specific rules and categories are different, based on this. And yes, I do see that Baron and Baronet got mixed up here, and I will be updating that. There's also Marquis, is in the list. But this the specific arrangement of those is a little arcane. If you look in the corpora, it will tell you you get this one for excellent service in one office plus another one, or two terms as this, or one term as that, and another term. It's super duper complex. But take a look at the corpora, and it'll give you the details. There are also what we call non-noble titles, which some of them are explicitly defined in the corpora. Those include, once you've served as Kingdom Champion, you could receive the title of Defender. Once you've served as Kingdom Guildmaster of Reeves, you could earn the title of Justiciar. And then if you're serving in the not President, Vice President, Secretary, but some of the other roles in office, you might get what's called a master or maester. We just updated that here in Crystal Groves, or esquire titles as well, and those are not considered noble titles. They're non-noble titles. I will say, as well, we love in Crystal Groves and in many kingdoms giving out other titles. One of the things that the monarch gets to do is we get to invent any title we want. So if we want to give you the title of the court jester, and we want to make it official, and we want to give it to you in court and put it on your record forever, we can absolutely do that. We have people in our park who have received custom titles because they won competitions, such as Toby is the anime protagonist for having won a tournament, and we've given them out for specific acts of service. Then our incoming regent earned the title of Songsmith. Because she won a competition to write a song inspired by Angler's Rift. Whereas Bunky won earned the non-noble title of the Alchemist for this phenomenal potion making class that he taught. So we love to have those non-noble titles. It's very much in that MMORPG style where some people might have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of them, based on cool things that they do. And spoiler alert, many of these, more of these are due to be given out in the near future. Um, One other quick note, which we'll talk, there'll be a little bit more about this when we're looking at the associate system, but belts and waist gear with colors often have indicators that tell you what some things about that person. For example, if they're wearing a white belt, that means they are a knight. Now, that belt will be trimmed in different colors based off of the specific order that they earned. But if you see somebody with a white belt and red accents on it, that means they're a knight of the flame. Or if you see somebody that looks like they're wearing a traffic light, red, red, yellow, green, that means they're a flame, a crown, and a serpent. Um, if you see someone with a class sash, every class wears a sash of color, but that is, maybe a slightly fancier looking sash with some silver trim on it. That means they are a paragon of that class, or if they have a silver eye on a belt favor for the monsters. If you see someone wearing a gold phoenix on a hood, that is a good sign that they are a master of an order. And then there are three different belts that relate to the associate system, which we'll talk about in just a moment. And we'll talk about it just right now, actually. So one of the other systems in Amtgard that is very important to us on a cultural level is our mentorship system. The mentorship system is completely optional. No one ever has to participate in this. Technically, it's all optional. If you never wanted to ever sign in as a class and just be color forever, or if you never wanted to sign in, nobody would make you. We do need you to sign we'd want you to, but nobody would make you. But we do want you to, we want to recognize you for things. The mentorship system is a slightly different system. This is what we call our associate system, or mentors and associates. So this is very much a medieval kind of thing to do. So you're probably familiar with the concept of a squire. A knight has a squire, right? And so this is a person who is learning from that knight, and maybe being mentored them as they grow toward their path of knighthood. You might also have what's called an at arms. You might hear this as man at arms, woman at arms, shield brother, shield maiden, shield sister. That person is learning from a knight or a squire, or a noble. Nobles can take at arms as well. And let me back one step up. Being able to take associates or enter into mentoring relationships with people is based on that you have earned one of these special kind of titles. So just so you know, it's not. It is the cultural convention, and it's in the rules that you don't take squires unless you're a knight. So you can kind of see the list here. The at arms will wear a black belt, usually with some kind of silver trim or accent to that. The pages are that kind of first run of mentorship. Those are going to be wearing a yellow belt. So, those are people who are just kind of getting started and learning, but they do want to mentor, and growing in that kind of thing. And then you have apprentices who are, apprentice to a paragon, who are learning to master a particular class. As I mentioned, these systems are completely optional. Absolutely no one is ever required to become a squire or an at arms or a page or an apprentice. And these systems are designed to be encouraging mentorship relationships. And and one note, different kingdoms may have different traditions as to the symbols that their associates wear. I believe in some kingdoms, the apprentices wear a blue belt. In some kingdoms, the at arms wear a green belt. And so just be aware your mileage may vary. Check with your kingdom corpora and your kingdom to see if there are any traditions that are specific to your kingdom for that associate system. And you also will very often hear the term beltline. Beltline basically just means, because these are all symbolized by wearing a belt, the knight wearing their white belt takes a squire who wears a red belt, who then takes an at arm who's wearing a black belt, who then takes a page who's wearing a yellow belt. You'll hear the term beltline, which is basically just the family tree of your association with other people. We're gonna end today by talking about kind of our conduct and community expectations. So now that you know a bit more about how the game runs and how it operates, we do want to talk about how we get along together as an organization, because there are expectations of every player. Those expectations can be found in a couple of different places. They can be found in our code of conduct. They can be found in our discrimination and harassment policy, and then other kingdoms may have other documents there. Amtgard as an organization stands for some very important values, and the Crystal Groves in particular. We want to be a place of knowledge. We want to teach each other and enrich each other through what we do, whether that's training each other in combat, sharing what we've learned in the arts and sciences. Knowledge transfer and knowledge sharing is important. Our community is very important to us. We respect each other. We treat each other fairly, and we treat each other with honor and civility. In the heat of battle, you might get a little irritated sometimes, or if a call on the field doesn't go the way you expected. But at the end of the day, we're all playing together, and we're all in this together, and we all want to have good attitudes together. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And then growth, we're all here to welcome people, to include each other, and that welcoming spirit is one of the things that makes Amcard such a wonderful organization. Now, importantly, Amcard has a code of conduct. The code of conduct declares the specific areas that are not considered acceptable for participation in this game. If you violate the code of conduct, you may be asked to leave and you may not be allowed to return in certain circumstances. So please read the code of conduct. It is in your rules of play document, it's available online. But those behaviors that we do not, the lines that we don't cross include threatening anyone else's safety or property. Doesn't matter how heated that game gets, we're not going to make threats that are involved in it. And similarly, physical violence outside the bounds of combat or hostility inside the bounds of combat are not acceptable. You can kill your friends, but once you've killed your friend, you need to reach down, help them back up, and clap on the back and say good job. All right, we do not harm each other outside the bounds of combat. Sexual harassment and inappropriate conduct, never acceptable at any point in time. That should not need further explanation, but be aware you might be in an event with alcohol. We do events at a winery, and so if you've thrown a couple back, that doesn't mean it's time to get flirty with someone who is not willing and consenting on that one. Theft and destruction of property. Just don't do that. That's a crime. Don't do crimes. We don't do crimes here. Refusing to follow the game rules. If you are not willing to play the game as we have stated it, you are not a part of our game. If you're not going to abide by the rules, if you're not going to take deaths that you're supposed to, take shots that you're supposed to, why are you here? So we might ask you to leave. Creating a hostile environment. This one is extraordinarily key. Amtgard is an option. It is an option. No one is required to play in Amtgard. And that means we are all here to have fun and to have fun together. If that is not a thing that you're here to do, if you're here to cause trouble, or you're going to be harassing people, or you're going to create a hostile environment, you're not welcome here. We don't do that. And we're all here because a lot of us are the nerds with with a little neurodivergence here and there, and some of us, you might have been the kid that got picked on in high school. We're not there anymore, right? And we're not going to keep that going ourselves, so we create a welcome environment for everyone. And then finally, we do have specific policies and protections in place for our youth participants, both in how they can participate and then how the rest of the adults around them are expected to behave. If you violate that policy, don't do that. It's very, very bad. Just be aware the officers of the game can and will suspend you or potentially ban you permanently from the organization if you violate our policies, and you may be banned across every kingdom, meaning you cannot play Amtgard again ever. So just don't do it. We're here to play, we're here to have fun, and we're here to behave appropriately with each other. Importantly, Crystal Groves. Oh, that those tiles didn't save very well. I'll get that fixed. Despite the scramble that you are seeing, Crystal Groves and our parent corporate organization, Capital Games, we are committed to a space that is free of toxic behavior. We want to be safe. We want to be fun. We have a zero tolerance policy for racism, discrimination, prejudice, and harassment based on a number of categories, and these are non-negotiable. It's Pride Month, and we're having a Pride event, and if that doesn't comport with someone's opinion of how social organizations work, They're welcome to find a different social organization. Same thing with disabilities, veteran status. We have a lot of people who are who come from the military. We have people who are in families of all types, religions of all types, ethnicities, ages, etc. And so, we play nice with each other. Be aware, we do have a whistleblower policy, and we do also take very strong action against retaliation. So if you are ever experiencing, and I'll go ahead and say this, if you're ever experiencing any situation where you don't feel comfortable, or you believe someone has violated one of our principles, please talk to us. Talk to your monarch, your prime minister, your GMR, or any other officer at the park. Talk to any other member of the officer in the kingdom. Talk to one of your, even if you're not super comfortable sharing that something's going on, if you've got a friend at the park, talk to your friend and let them talk to us, because we want to take care of our community, and we want to make sure that everybody has a good experience. And the only way we can do that is if we know that problems are happening. I, as an incoming monarch and as a former prime minister, I would rather know now that something's headed in a wrong direction, so that I can talk to the people that are involved and see if this is something we can resolve without larger disciplinary issues. If two people aren't getting along, let's talk it out. If somebody's misbehaving, let's make sure they know the rules. If they're not following the rules, let's take action on that as we need to. Okay. If you do report anything to a member of monarchy, or to the board, or to your ombudsman, these are anonymous, or these are confidential reports. So we do not retaliate against reporters. And depending on the nature of the issue, or if you explicitly tell us, hey, I'm letting you know this thing, we don't need to take action right now, those are handled confidentially, and we're not going to go to somebody and say, hey, such and such told me that you smacked him on the butt. That's not how these reports work. We have policies and procedures for that. Okay. So that's the kind of the darker side. I love that this that ended up as a darker font there. Let's put it together. So what we talked about today, we talked about the structure of the game. We talked about who runs the game, the classes that you play on the field, the different recognition systems that we have, how you learn and grow within the game if you choose to participate in our mentorship system, and then our code of conduct and how we make a respectful and welcoming game for everyone. So I hope that this class was beneficial to you. I hope that it answered a lot of questions for some of you that might have be newer to the game, or maybe have been around for a while but just didn't know some of these things. I hope this was very, very helpful to you. If you are new, if this is your first few weeks, and I know we've had a few folks drop into the chat tonight, but if you're watching this later and it's your first foray into Amtgard, find us, come to a park, say hi. We'd love to meet you, or see you again, and ask us questions. If you see anybody working on a thing, or holding a sword, or with a shield, ask them, hey, tell me about that, and I guarantee you, we're nerds. We will talk your ear off about the things that we're excited about, because we want you to be excited too. Everybody was new once upon a time, right? So welcome to the kingdom. Welcome to Amtgard. Welcome to our park. If you are new to our park, and with that, I'm going to say thank you so much for attending my class. I'm going to open the floor to any questions. I think I kind of inserted in real time answers to questions that I saw from the chat, or in some cases that I saw in other chats. But if you do have any questions, feel free to post those in the chat. If you do want to speak up and bring me those questions verbally, just be aware we are recording the class, so your voice will be on the recording, and you are consenting for us to publish that. But if you'd like to post in the chat, you can do that as well. I'm mostly vamping right now to give people an opportunity to either type in the chat or to get ready to unmute as I say. Are there any questions, or does anybody have anything, some of our more experienced players that they'd like to add in there as well? Red, one of our specifically recognized for mentorship. Red, what do you got?
So, I've been in the game since I was 15 years old, so I've been in now for 18 years. And I'm gonna try and make this like as sing-songy as possible. But the game's community and the people you meet within the game will be more so in my experiences have been more of a benefit and the support group I needed as a teenager for me to become the person I am today. So in the event that you feel like you don't have someone to go to, even if it's just like a 5 minute conversation or you just need someone to hit with you or someone to swing foam at, just ask. I'm the game is like we're all here for community. We're all here for each other. Um, in the time I've been in the game, I have met friends. I've seen friendships burn. I've seen, friendships rebuild. I've also met family. I have a mother figure in the game, two father figures, older brothers, an aunt. Like, these are people I look at as if like they're actual family to me. And they've been in my life since I started the game. So it's like I've known these people for more than half my life at this point. It's kind of crazy to think about. So it's something to really consider whenever you look at a game and you go, oh, there's a bunch of nerds. It's like, yeah, we're a bunch of nerds, but we're also a community that likes to see everyone build up. So the awards that you get, they're all nice and shiny, but the real gift that you get from Amtgard, in my honest experience, is the community and the camaraderie you get, and always being able to lift someone up. And if you feel that you're not having those experiences at a park, talk to someone. Find out what we can do to help you have fun. Because that's always been my mantra since I've come back is like we're here for everyone to have fun. What can I do to help you have fun? And that's just like the whole thing of Amtgard.
Absolutely great point. It's the best man at my wedding was a gentleman by the name of Baron Frank Avilia that I met in the now Kingdom of Winter's Edge 16 years ago. We met, and he was the best man at my wedding. So Amcarders can absolutely become friends for life. I didn't know whether to go with we're like Olive Garden when you're here, your family, or the real award was the friends you made along the way, but both are very much applicable to our experience here in the game. Atheris, what you got?
I didn't hear it mentioned, and thus I didn't know if it actually made it into the recording. To clarify something on the leveling your class section that you jumped past before we could mention it directly, you do not have to wait until you reach max level to add levels to another class. So you can take credits in more than one class, just not per day. You have to take it on a different day. So you can add a level, or not a level, a credit in warrior, and then the next week or the next meeting add one to wizard or to color or to assassin, etc. You are not cut off from adding credits to those until you happen to get your first max.
And even then, we so I'll verbalize because I didn't bring it up here. I am one of the developers on our online record keeping system, aka the Orc. And you can just keep putting credits in there. You're not going to get anywhere with it after sixth level because there's nothing above sixth today. But
Thought
if
I
you want
understood
to end
words.
up with 700 credits in Wizard, you could absolutely be a 700 credit wizard. You're certainly welcome to do so, and there are people in our organization who have been playing since the 80s who do have hundreds of credits, and in particular games. So a great add there. Any other questions? Anybody else have any insights that they would like to provide? Going once, going twice. All right. Well, thank you all for attending the class today. Here in Angler's Rift, we all just usually keep hanging out until the last person jumps off the call. So I'm going to stop sharing, but that doesn't mean you have to leave. If you want to hang out, if you would rather ask questions, but just not on a recording, you can do that as well. So I'll hit stop and